All right, thank you guys so much. It is such a privilege to share the stage with all the distinguished speakers that we've had over the last couple of days. So thank you so much. It really is an honor. Today, I am here speaking on behalf of the Foundation for Teaching Economics, where I'm a mentor teacher and a professor primarily in their Economics for Leaders program, which is a week-long leadership camp for high school students that they typically come between the summer between their junior and senior year, and they come from all over the world, which is great. So we teach them economics in the morning, we do some leadership activities in the afternoon, and we try to help them understand how economics can make you a better leader. We also do a variety of other things. So we do one-day programs, we do week-long camps, we do online classes, we write curriculum. We're doing all of this because we want young people to understand the economic way of thinking and be able to use it to hopefully, when they become the leaders in the future, help us solve so many of the problems that we have in the world. We also have a goal of helping teachers become better economic educators. And to that end, we offer workshops and training, and we write curriculum as well. All of that you can find if you're interested at fte.org. A lot of resources and stuff available there. Okay, so I'm supposed to talk to you about thinking like an economist, right? So let me just start by asking you, what is economics? Because we use this word a lot, right? We're always talking about the economy and stuff, but what exactly does that mean? Like when we say the word economics, what do you think of? Supply and demand. All right, thank you. You cannot go through an economics class without supply and demand, right? Seeing the graphs, right? You see that little X mark and you're like, oh my God, not another graph, right? So supply and demand, we got to say it, right? Does anyone know why supply and demand is important? Because it sets prices. Why are prices important? Yes. They can be manipulated, but does that make them important? Why are prices important? Because prices are information. When you see a price, it's telling you the relative scarcity of that item compared to another item. People say all the time, you can't compare apples and oranges. Baloney. You can. Tell me the price of apples and the price of oranges. Now I can compare them, right? All prices do is they tell you, what do you have to give up to get something? And without prices, we would be lost in the economy and have no idea what kinds of choices to make. So what is economics then? It's about all those things, and we talk about those things for sure. A lot of times when my students come to my class, the first thing they say is, well, professor, it's like my last semester. I have to pass this class to graduate, and I put it off until the last semester of my senior year because I've been dreading economics this entire time because I'm not good at math. Right? And so they have this sort of math phobia that carries over into economics because that's what they think economics is. They think it's about math and numbers and money. Now, the money part they're interested in, right? But the math and the numbers, not so much. But I'm here to tell you that is not what economics is primarily about. We use money to talk about things, but money's not a resource, right? We can't actually build something with money. The only thing that money does for us is it helps facilitate trades. And so in that part, it's important. It helps us trade with each other. But other than that, it's a green piece of paper or a digit on a computer screen. It's not really resourceful, right? In that minute. Now, math and numbers we use, but again, we're using those things to describe what we're actually interested in economics. And that is, in economics, we are really interested in choices. Didn't see that coming, did you? Economics is a social science. We are interested in human behavior. We are really interested in the choices you make and why you make them. That is what economics is all about. If I were to give you sort of a textbook definition, this would be it. We are studying how humans choose to use scarce resources to achieve their personal and social goals. So first off, it's important to recognize as an economist, human beings are important. Individuals matter, and the choices that individuals make are really, really important. Okay? So humans choose. Institutions don't choose. We like to blame institutions, but the institutions don't make choices. We blame the government. Well, the government doesn't make decisions. The people who work in the government make decisions, right? We like to blame Walmart or Amazon or, fill in the blank. Those are institutions. They don't make choices. The people who work there make choices. It's all about the choices of the individual person. Now, we're doing this, we're making these choices in the context of a world of scarcity. Scarcity is the fundamental economic problem that has faced humanity from day one. We don't have enough resources to give everybody everything they want. And so that forces us to have to make choices. What are we going to make? How are we going to make it? Who's going to get the stuff once we make it? How are we going to distribute it? It's a miracle that we live in a society that we're constantly just not beating each other up to take each other's stuff. Right? Because we live in a world of scarcity. So how have we gotten to the point where now we live in a world where you go and interact with complete random strangers that you will never see again, and you completely trust them? Do you know how much faith it takes to go to a restaurant? I mean, some person comes up, you say, hey, can you go make this? They go back behind a wall where you can't see them, and they prep your food, and they bring it out to you, and you willingly eat it without question. And when you're done, you hand them your credit card and say, please go back behind the wall, do whatever you want with the credit card, and bring it back to me. That is a lot of faith and trust that doesn't exist in every society in America, or around the world. It is unique to America and Western civilization, right? Most of human history, when you saw someone come into you that you didn't know, you either ran away or you grabbed a weapon because you assumed they were coming to beat you up and take your things. Today, not so much. So that's great. We live in a world of scarcity. It forces us to make choices. And the reason why we're doing all this, of course, is because we want to have a good life. However we define that. Now, obviously, we wanted to help our students think through what a good life is, right, and help them define that in useful ways. But we all have goals for ourselves and for society and for our communities. So we're making all these choices to try to get what we want. It's all about economics. It's all about getting the most out of life that you can. That's it. That's economics. Okay? Now, we make some assumptions in our discipline. And in order for us to do what we do, in order to study human behavior, right, and to try to, if we have any hope whatsoever of predicting human behavior, we have to assume that people are rational. People are not crazy. They're not stupid. They're not pathetic. They are rational. Think about it. As an economist, I believe every decision you've ever made in your entire life was a rational choice. And I'm saying it with a straight face. Like, how in the world is that possible? I look back at junior high, like if I could just delete 7th and 8th grade out of my life, I think I'd be a much better person. So I look back and I go, all of that was rational. Are you serious? Now, we're different than psychology, right? A psychologist does the same thing. They're looking at human behavior. They're a social science, but they assume everybody's crazy. The only question is, what kind of crazy are you? Right? We're going to ask you some questions. We're going to pull out the DSM-5 or whatever, 6, and whatever edition it's in now. We're going to look it up and say, congratulations, you have such and such a phobia. Welcome to the team. Right? So everybody's crazy, according to psychologists. But if you're trying to predict behavior, how do you predict craziness? If you're just doing things for no apparent reason, just random craziness, there's no way we could understand why you're doing what you're doing, right? So economists must assume that you are rational, or our entire discipline just falls apart. Now, it's really in vogue today, though, for economists to come out and talk about rational irrationality and all these sorts of things, right? Now, it's nonsense. Go back to basics. All we mean, right, we have to define rational. When we say someone is rational, all we're saying is that your behavior is always consistent with what you want. Or at least what you think you want, right? Now, sometimes we lack integrity because we think, oh, I'm doing something that I don't want to do. The economist says, no, you just don't realize that you really want something that you didn't realize you wanted. Right? So my mother-in-law, for example, she used to tell me all the time, oh, I wish I could quit smoking. And one day my wife left the room and I looked at my mother-in-law and said, stop saying that. What you really want to do is you want to smoke 2 packs a day, because otherwise you would have quit already. She starts to cry. My wife comes in. I'm in trouble. Right? Saw that coming, right? But the reality of it is she said, this is what I want to do, but her behavior showed something completely different. That you really wanted something else. So if you want to change your behavior, now we can start to talk. What is it that you really want? How do we change what you want and why you want it? So when I'm talking to my students, the very first thing I want them to do is I want them to think about what they want. Because what you want is going to influence all the choices you make in your entire life. Okay? So it's very important. Be careful what you want. And if you really want to know what you want, you've heard people say it before, look at your calendar and your checkbook, right? When I teach personal finance, nobody ever wants to show me their checkbook. Right? They don't want to tell me what they're spending their money on because that's opening up their heart to me and showing me exactly what they really want, what they're prioritizing, right, with their money. So that's our first assumption. People are rational. We have to do it. Okay, so let's talk about teaching the economic way of thinking. At the Foundation for Teaching Economics, we really believe that it is important to try to create an environment where the students are feeling and living out the concepts, right? So we really want to engage in active learning as much as we possibly can, and economics is a really good place to do that. So the first economic reasoning proposition we're going to talk about is that people choose, right? We mentioned this before. People choose, and individual choices are the source of all the social outcomes we see. So we look around, all the good things in society, all the bad things in society, we can trace back to the choices that some individuals have made. So Paul Hayne wrote a textbook actually called The Economic Way of Thinking, and he said this, he said that all social phenomenon emerge from the choices that individuals make in response to the expected costs and benefits to themselves. So here's the thing about that rational assumption, right? We assume you're rational because you're doing what you want, but you're doing it because you think it's going to get you what you want. Doesn't mean it will, doesn't mean it's the right choice, but making a wrong decision doesn't mean it wasn't rational. Because in the moment, based on the limited information you had at the moment, because no one knows the future, you expected certain outcomes. If I do this, I will get that. And yet, anyone ever had buyer's remorse? Every time I buy something from Cracker Barrel for my kids, like a little toy, they bring it home and it breaks and they cry, right? And it happens every time. And I tell them, every time they ask for something from Cracker Barrel, I get down on my knees, I look them in the eyes, I say, are you sure? You know that every toy from Cracker Barrel ends in tears. Are you sure? Oh, yes, Daddy. Yes, Daddy. Why? Because it's not going to happen this time, right? They don't expect it to happen again. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made that decision, right? If you had perfect information, you would always make the right choice, but we don't. So we go based on what we know at the time, and we make the best choice we can, hoping it's going to get us what we want, right? That makes us rational. That also leads to all the things we see happening around the world, and those outcomes we can even see from outer space. Anyone know what island this is? Good, it's not an island, it's Korea. That is the Korean peninsula from outer space. 70 plus years ago, some people made a decision. They said, we're going to draw this arbitrary line, and we're going to say, above this line, you have no property rights. Below this line, you get to have property rights. Fast forward 70 years later, let's see what happens. South Korea today is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. North Korea is so poor, we don't even know how poor they are. The only way we know is from people who have escaped from North Korea, who have told us about the mass starvation and things that are happening in North Korea. It's so bad that the women of South Korea today are taller than the men of North Korea. Yeah. Why? Because of their diet and how well they eat when they're young. So South Koreans can feed themselves and North Koreans cannot. It's crazy. So people look at this sort of thing and they want to look at it and say, oh, there's all kinds of other explanations. Oh, maybe it's geography, maybe it's culture, maybe it's all these other things, the history and stuff. Not in Korea. It's the same people, the same language, the same culture, the same geography. The only difference is an arbitrary line that was drawn by a group of people who said, we're going to change the institutions in this country. Okay? So people make decisions, and those choices matter. Okay? Now, every time we make a choice, there is a cost that is imposed. And most people, when you ask them, hey, what did that cost? What's the first thing you think of? The money, the price, right? How much did I have to give up, right, to get it? So they always want to talk about money and monetary costs. Economists, though, take one step further. They say, look, the money isn't anything. The only reason why money is important is because it's a symbol that represents something that you can get with it, right? So we just take the next step and say the cost isn't the money. The cost is what else would you have spent the money on instead? Okay? So people make choices, those choices impose a cost, and the consequences of those choices are always in the future. So when we talk about cost in economics, we talk about opportunity cost. What opportunity did I give up when I made a choice? There is no free lunch. You've heard that phrase before? That's about opportunity cost, right? Whether you're paying or someone else is paying is irrelevant. There's still a cost involved. Right? I go to lunch with somebody, they offer to pay, great, there's no monetary cost, but I still have to spend my time with them. What else could I have been doing instead? Whatever the next best option is, that's my opportunity cost. Okay? So when economists think of cost, that's what we're always thinking of. When an accountant thinks of costs, they're thinking of the money, right? We don't think that way. It's a little bit different. So opportunity cost is important. Let me give you an example. You ever gone to the movies? And I mean, we've been to enough movies, we can pretty much within the first 15 minutes or so, we know whether the movie's going to be good or it's going to be bad, right? So you gone to the movie theater, you bought your popcorn, you paid for your ticket, you got your drink, you sit down, you're 10, 20 minutes into the movie and you realize this is a bummer. This movie stinks. Do you stay or do you go? Who stays? Who stays? Good. Who goes? Really? Smart. Really? Have you actually done that? Or are you just saying that, yeah? Oh, good. Good for you. So economists would say it depends, right? Two answers always to like most questions about economics is either it depends or supply and demand. Like if you use those answers, like you're going to get like 90% of the answers right. Okay. So it depends. What's my opportunity cost? Those who stayed were not necessarily making the wrong choice. Or maybe you were. If you were thinking to yourself, well, I already paid for it, I might as well suck it up and stick it out, that's not the right way of thinking, right? That's what we call a sunk cost, right? The cost you paid in the past is irrelevant. It's gone. It's not coming back. That should not have any influence whatsoever on every decision you make now going forward. Okay? All that matters is what's happening moving next. Okay? So I've paid my money. The money doesn't matter anymore. Now the question is, what else could I be doing with my time? So everyone who stays through the movie is just saying they have a low opportunity cost. They have a boring life and have nothing better to do. Right? That's all it is, right? Which is fine. Like everyone can't have a happy, exciting life, right? It's okay. Right? So it depends on what your perspective is and how you're thinking about it when you go and make that choice, right? What's your opportunity cost is always on our mind as economists. Okay. Let me give you another example. I need two volunteers. Two volunteers. All right, sir, you can come up. I need one more. Another volunteer, please. Yes, come on up. All right, cool. If both of you wouldn't mind coming up here, that would be awesome. I appreciate it. You want to put on the document camera, please? Okay, so here's the deal. I have 5 candy bars here. I'm going to just show you real quick. A Kit Kat. I got a Snickers, put it the right way. I got Twix. I got a Hershey's with almonds and a Reese's peanut butter cups, okay? So we have 5 different candy bars here. What I would like you to do, please, is just write down for us. And what's your name, sir? Tom, why don't you come over here and just rank order, please, from the best candy to the worst candy for us. And think about it for yourself. How would you rank order these 5 candy bars? Your favorite to your least favorite.
God bless you.
All right. Twix, Snickers, Hershey's, Kit Kat, And Reese's as last. Oh, even down lower even. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so Tom says Twix. Who agrees? Did Tom get the list right? Like absolutely every single one. Tom, come on, man. What are you doing?
I went in my own house.
So who thinks he was right though about Twix? Anyone like Twix? A few people? Okay. Not too. That's better than, less than everything. Okay, so David, he says, no. Snickers is not second best. Snickers is the best. Reese's makes a big comeback from last place to second place. Then Kit Kat and Twix and Hershey Bar is on the bottom for David. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, David. I appreciate your help. Okay, so if these guys were hired as experts, and we allowed them to make the decisions for us about what kind of candy we were going to eat, are we going to be happy with the results? No. Is it possible for any other human being to make a decision for you that will make you happy? Maybe, right? I hope so. I mean, depends on how well they know me, right? But could we hire an expert in Washington, D.C. and say, please be the candy czar and pass out all the candy bars and tell me what I'm going to eat? Now, I mean, a candy bar is better than nothing, but are we going to be fully satisfied the way that we could be if we allowed people to make decisions for themselves? Right? We, as economists, we want, whenever possible, for people to make choices for themselves. Why? Because you're the only one who knows your opportunity cost. There's no way some dude in Washington, D.C., or dudette, right, in Washington, D.C., right, knows what your rank order of preferences is. And because every single person is different, there's no possible way they could ever satisfy us all. Okay? I don't envy politicians. Right? They have a thankless job where they are constantly going to upset at least 50% of people. Right? It's a difficult job, and that's the reason why we don't get good candidates. Right? We don't get enough people running for office who are strong candidates because it's too expensive for them. The opportunity cost. The thing I hate the most, and I'm sorry, just taking aside for a minute, the thing I hate the most is the politician says, this is the best job I ever had. Well, shame on you. Right? Because that means you never want to leave, and you'll do anything you can to keep the best job you ever had. No. You should go have, this should be like the worst job you ever had. You're just doing it because you're serving your country, right? And then you serve your time and you get out of the way and you let someone else come along, right? I believe in term limits, but okay. Now, so Tom, you said Twix was the best. Here you go, sir. Thank you for playing. So Tom, what did that Twix cost you? Sure, a little bit. You were here anyway. Just time? Share your opinion? Yeah?
I get all the I'll get dissed by something or canceled.
Okay, you know that someone's going to be upset with you because you have the wrong candy references or whatever. Okay, yeah, maybe. Yeah, they're going to have a protest sign out there. Tom sucks at candy, whatever, right? Yeah, it's possible, I guess. I mean, it might happen, unlikely, but it could happen. David, you said Snickers, right? Watch out, I'm sorry. There you go. Snickers. All right, so David, what did the Snickers cost you?
Well, financially, nothing.
Right, it was non-monetary cost because I paid for it. You're welcome.
For me, I'm not allergic to the peanuts, so it didn't cost me anything.
Didn't cost you anything. Interesting. Is it possible to make a choice and not have a cost? What did I just tell you? No choice is free. So what we have here is a misunderstanding of cost, right? When an economist says cost, what are we talking about? Opportunity cost, right? So Tom, knowing that now, that when I ask you about the cost, I'm asking, what's your opportunity cost? What was the opportunity cost of that Twix? Okay, so here's a common misunderstanding, right? Thank you. I was hoping you would say that, all right? So a common misunderstanding is I chose the Twix, so I gave up all the other candy. Sorry, Tom. It's a world of scarcity, dude. You can't have it all, okay? You chose one candy, so you give up the next best candy. One thing that you gave up. You gave up the Snickers. right? That was your second best option. So when you chose Twix, you gave up Snickers. You didn't give up all the options. All the options weren't going to be there. Yeah, do it before it goes away, right? Okay. So David, what did the Snickers cost you?
Cost me the effort to get up there and write those things.
When an economist says cost, what are we talking about? Opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is, what was the opportunity cost of the Snickers?
Losing the races. I guess picking, choosing the other.
The next best option, the Reese's, right? So Tom, David, when you chose the Snickers, you looked at this Reese's and you said, nah, you don't make the cut, you're not good enough, right? You refused to have the Reese's because you preferred the Snickers, right? To choose is to refuse. I refuse the Snickers, or the Reese's, because I would rather have the Snickers. So each person here has their own order of preferences, right? And so when you make a choice, you're giving up just the next best option. Not everything, because we can't have everything, right? It's just whatever the next best use of our time, energy, money, and resources might be. Okay? Thanks. You can go back to the slides. Cool. All right. So in your folders, some of you had folders sitting on your table with some information about the Foundation for Teaching Economics, some upcoming workshops and that kind of stuff. There's also a handout in there. In our most recent curriculum, we've created some lesson plans about economics and the environment. And this is one of the activities that we run with our students to get them thinking about opportunity costs. And the idea is to have the students look at all of these different options, these 17 different things that we could do, and ask them to rank order them from the most important to the least important. This was actually inspired by something called the Copenhagen Consensus, if you're familiar with that, where they gathered some experts from around the world and said, look, if we put together $50 billion to try to solve problems in the world, what problem should we address? So we're just having the students do what the Copenhagen Consensus did. Look at these problems and you tell me, where should we spend our $50 billion to do good in the world? Now, if you look at all those things, all of them are good. Heck, I'd love to do $50 billion for all of them. But we can't, right? We simply don't have enough resources for everybody to have everything. So we have to make decisions. What are we going to give up when we decide to spend our money one place or another? So it gets them sort of thinking about the different options, gets them critically thinking, gets them thinking about opportunity costs. And then we ask them, well, what was your criteria for making that decision? Like, why did you prioritize these things the way that they did? And what we find is every time that I've run this so far, every single global warming initiative is at the bottom of the list. And so for good or bad, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but they say all these other things, we can get more benefit than we could by doing the global warming stuff, right? We could spend trillions of dollars doing the global warming things, and it'll adjust the planet by 1 degree 100 years from now. Maybe. Assuming it actually, goes the way we're supposed to, thinking it's going to go. So again, there's another example, another activity that you can use with your students. For the sake of time, I'm going to move forward though. Okay, so 2 propositions so far. People choose, and whenever we make a choice, we impose a cost on ourselves, and that's an opportunity cost. Economic reasoning proposition number 3 is people respond to incentives in predictable ways. When economists see people making the same bad decision over and over and over again, we don't automatically blame the people. We look at that and say, what are the incentives these people are facing? I have a lot of libertarian friends who say, let's just vote all the bums out. So why? You're just going to elect a whole new group of bums. They're going to go there, and what's going to happen? They're going to face the same incentives that every other politician faces, and if they're there long enough, they'll end up doing the same thing that everybody else does. Doesn't matter what party you belong to. All you're doing is voting for whose friends get the benefits. Right? We're just going to pass out the goodies to whoever. Why? Because that's how I get reelected. And so because of the incentive structure built into the institution, we continue to get bad outcomes over and over again. So the key to economists is we have to change the incentives. We got to make maybe some constitutional rule changes if we want to really hold them accountable, because they're certainly not going to hold themselves accountable, right? So changing incentives is a powerful tool. And if you're going to be a leader, which our students are eventually going to be, right, you have to recognize if I'm leading people, the incentives that I create for my people are going to matter. It's going to lead them to make certain kinds of choices. And sometimes those choices are unintended. We didn't really foresee those sorts of things coming, right? So what is an incentive? An incentive is some sort of reward or penalty that is associated with a choice. Now, those rewards and penalties may be monetary in nature, right? Most of us go to work because we get paid, right? That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So we do some things for monetary reasons. One of the things that people look at economists, though, and they look at us and they think badly of us is because they think we are telling everybody the only reason why you do things is for money. Is that true? Of course not. Right? We do things for all kinds of reasons, right? We don't just do things for money. This actually goes back to a misunderstanding and a misreading of Adam Smith, right? 1776, he writes The Wealth of Nations. And in there he says, it's not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, and the baker that we expect our dinner, right? But we appeal to their self-interest, right? And we tell them what's in it for them so that they'll give us food, right? And so they looked at this and say, oh, self-interest, you must be saying that we're all selfish and we only do things because we've got the money. No. The problem is, Adam Smith wrote a book before The Wealth of Nations called The Theory of Moral Sentiments, published in 1759, where he spends like 200 pages explaining what he means by self-interest. And he just assumes everybody read that, so they know what I mean when I say self-interest. Right? Complete misunderstanding. So as an economist, I just want to let you know, we do not assume you only do things for money. But you do some things for money. Right? If you keep raising the price, people will do more of what you ask them to do. It's just the way the world works. But I don't go buy flowers for my wife and come home and expect her to pat me on the head and say, good job, Johnny, here's $20. Right? That's not why I do it, right? I do it because it makes her smile. And for some odd reason, her happiness affects my happiness. Right? Happy wife, happy life, as they say, right? So we do things for all kinds of reasons. And we do things out of benevolence for others for all kinds of reasons too, right? We do it because it makes us feel good, right? You ever done something good for others? Maybe you haven't. If you have, you know, right? It feels good to do things for other people. So these rewards could be monetary or non-monetary in nature. So let me give you some examples. You tell me, would these incentives change your behavior? What if I said, class attendance has no effect on your grade? I know one person who honestly, who is less likely to go to class? Him. Yeah, all your students, right? This matters. This is why in my class, I have a policy that you can miss 3 classes because I know life happens. But beyond that, you're getting docked, right? You're losing points off of your grade because I want to incentivize you to be there because if you're there, you're going to learn something. Right? That's the whole point. So, but notice, not everybody raised their hand, did they? Some people go to school and they say, man, what is the least amount of work I got to do to pass this class? Yo, prof, like D is for diploma. Like I need, like C's get degrees, yo. Like what do I got to do to just get by so that I can get out of this class? That's the wrong perspective we want our students to have, isn't it? We want them there because they want to learn. And for some people, this policy, no effect whatsoever because you're going to show up anyway because you want to learn something, right? That's the attitude we want. But that doesn't mean that I don't know in advance if I put this policy in place, I will have fewer students. People respond to incentives in predictable ways. Kinda, sorta. Because while I know some people will respond the way that I predict, I don't know how many of you, and I don't know exactly who you're going to be in advance. Right? So while I can change the incentive and get an outcome, I can never predict precisely how big an impact it's going to be and who exactly is going to respond to that. Okay, next one. What if I said all students who play the tuba get a full ride scholarship to college? We get more tuba players? Yeah, of course we will, right? But not everybody's going to play the tuba. Right? It's just not going to happen. Incentives matter. My brother, true story, 6th grade, he decided he was going to play the oboe. You ever heard the oboe? It's beautiful. If it's played correctly, it can sound like the human voice singing. You ever heard a 6th grader play the oboe? You ever strangled a duck? Kind of what I imagine, right? So my brother, I asked him, like, why are you doing this? I'm playing the trumpet. Like, why are you playing the oboe? He's like, I read an article that kids who play the oboe are more likely to get into an Ivy League school. Gives you an idea of my brother, right, in 6th grade. My smarter, richer, taller, better looking younger brother, who I love dearly. No, really, he's great. So my brother makes that decision. He goes to school, he starts playing the oboe. A year later, he quits. Why? Because he found out that 7th graders who play the oboe are less likely to have a girlfriend. Him? Incentives matter, right? And we will change our behavior when the incentives change, right? It happens. What if I said all students have to rise and greet the instructor enthusiastically or you fail the course? You gonna do it? Or you're gonna say, forget you and your ego, man. I'm not doing that, right? True story, I had a college professor who said, if you give me a standing ovation at the end of every class, there will be no final exam in this class. Really? Yeah, really. So what do we do? Standing ovation, every class. Yay, you're the best, man. Awesome. So one day, the department chair comes in, sits in the back of the room. Well, whatever, like class ends, like, yeah, man, you're awesome. And as we're packing up, the department chair walks to the front of the class, hands our professor a $100 bill, and leaves. We're like, what was that? And so we're packing up, we're like, dude, what's going on? And he says, well, over the summer, we were having this debate over who was a better teacher. And so I bet him $100 that I was so good that I could elicit a standing ovation from my students on demand. I said, just come in any day at random through the semester, and when I see you come in, I'll turn it on, and I'll be so good, I'll get a standing ovation. I bet you $100 I can do it. Right? Change the incentives, you change the behavior, right? It matters. It matters. Okay, can we show this video? Can you click on this for another example of incentives here?
When we asked Reebok to send us Terry Tate, some people thought we were crazy. But I'm a firm believer in paradigm breaking, outside the box thinking.
Yeah, buddy.
It was over 15 minutes ago, Mitch!
And since Terry's been with us, our productivity has gone up 46%. We're getting more from our employees than ever before.
You know you need a cover sheet on your TPS reports, Richard! That ain't new, baby!
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Janice!
But what's really impressed me is how Terry's become part of the Felcher family. He fits right in here.
That's a long distance call, Doug!
To be honest, I wish Reebok sent us 10 Terry Tates.
Well, when it's game time, it's pay time, baby! Woo!
Yeah. All right. Every business in the world has this problem, don't they? How do we get our employees to use company time for company work? Everybody wants to pretend to work and still get paid, right? I remember when I was in college, I worked for a company called REI. You might be familiar with it. And I worked in retail. And so I would go and I would organize the racks, right? And I would just sort of find a place where the boss wasn't looking. I'd stand there and I'd just kind of like pretend like I was organizing clothes. And I wasn't doing anything. I was just standing there and see how long I could get away with it, right? Because I wanted to do what everybody else wants to do. Do as little work as possible for as much money as possible, right? So how do you get your people to stay on task? Well, you hire Terry Tate, right? Change the incentives, right? Honestly, would you be more likely to be on task if Terry Tate worked in your office? Sure, but how many of you would be more likely to work somewhere else? Right, unintended consequence, right? The intention is, I want you to stay on task. The unintended consequence is, I have no workers. They all left. Okay? If you change the incentives, you change behavior, but you can't always predict what that's going to be. So while that's an important idea, it's also a dangerous idea. And people who are in power, who think that they can manipulate us, right, by changing the incentives to get us to do whatever they want, right, they soon find out people will do things that you don't expect. And you can't always predict exactly how it's going to go. But we do know, you change the incentives, some people are going to change their behavior. Okay, so I know I got about 5 more minutes left. So let's do one more activity, right? Because I said we were all about active learning. So I need 4 people who want to get paid to go fishing. Paid, real money. Real money. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the back. Come on up. All right, 4 people. We got our volunteers. Let me move this over here. Everyone can see. All right, cool. Now, welcome. Who we got here? What's your name? Heartland. Mike. Paul and Caleb. All right, so go ahead and gather around the table here. So these are our 4 fisher people. They have been hired to go fishing. These are the fish, the goldfish crackers. Okay, the table represents the ocean where they will be fishing. All right, so rule number 1 is for right now, you can't talk to each other. Okay. Okay, so here are all the fish that are swimming around in the ocean, and here's the deal. Here's the payoff. For every fish you catch in the first round, I will pay you 25 cents. But if there are fish left over in the second round, they've gotten bigger, they're worth more money. Any fish you harvest in the second round, I'll give you 50 cents for every fish you harvest in the second round. Ready? Round 1, go. All right, round 1's over. Cool. How many did you get? You got 1. There you go. 1, 2, and 3 for you. And how many did you get? 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Congratulations. Okay, round 2, go. Oh, there's no more fish. They're all dead. Congratulations. No more seafood for anyone ever. Right? We just overfished the sea and all the fish are gone. Is this a good outcome? No, this is bad. This is what we call in economics the tragedy of the commons. When you have a common resource, one where you can't stop people from getting to it, and yet when I use the resource, there's now less available for others, what you get is a race to see who can get the stuff first. Because the incentive is that if I wait, someone else is going to come along and take it. Right, Caleb? Right, how much did you get? Nada, right? Because he waited. Hey, he was thinking long term, but in the meantime, everyone else snuck in there and got the stuff. So what do we got to do? We got to change the incentives, right? We want a different outcome. We got to change the incentives. I guarantee you, I could do this all day. I could have had you all do it all at once, and just about every table would have done the same thing, right? We all do this is human nature. Right? So let's change the incentives. Let's do this. Okay, now here we. This. You can put the crackers back on here. I'll just reuse them real quick. You ate yours? Okay.
He's thinking in the short term.
Just so you know, I bought those 5 years ago. No, I'm kidding. I bought them last night, so it's all good. It's all good. Here, I have more. I got a whole bag full. Okay. No, it's okay. You're not the first one. You're not the first one. But eat it now before someone else gets it. I know. I'm telling you. Okay, so we got some fish here. Do more like this and like that. Sorry, that's a little bit. Yeah, good. Okay, so here's the rules now. Same payouts apply. Every fish you harvest in round 1, you will get 25 cents. Every fish you wait and you harvest in round 2, you'll get 50 cents. But if you harvest a fish that does not clearly belong to you, the government will fine you 50 cents. Okay? I'll give you 5 seconds to talk amongst yourselves. Yeah, pick a square, pick a triangle there.
So this belongs to us.
That belongs to you.
And that clearly does not belong to us.
Good? Okay, round 1, go. Okay, round 1's over. How many did you get? You got 2. All right, awesome. And you got 2 as well. All right, so I'll give you 2. I think you guys thought it was like a trick question or something. I don't know. Here you go.
How many rounds?
There's going to be 2 rounds. All right, so now go ahead and pick those up, Paul. They're dead.
Catch and release.
No, they're dead. I ate them. That's why I paid you. I paid you because I ate them, bro. Okay, so round 2 now, and just for the sake of this game, the sake of time, there will be no round 3. Okay, so round 2, go. Yeah, go for it. All right, awesome. Good deal. All right, round 2 is over. Let me do the payouts here real quick. You got 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. I gave you 5. I'm sorry. Here, have 5. Just here. Let's see. Bonus. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. Okay, excellent. Now, we have fish left over, right? Why are the fish on the lines the only one that aren't dead? They didn't clearly belong to you. The rules of the game matter. And so that will be the next slide here. Thank you guys for playing. I appreciate you. How about a round of applause for these volunteers? Thank you so much. So the rules of the game matter. And institutions are the rules of the game that influence the choices we make every day. Now, institutions can be both formal or informal in nature. They can be formal rules like, if the fish doesn't clearly belong to you, you don't get it or you get fined. Now, if I don't explain that well, though, if there's some gray area, if I just say, if the fish doesn't belong to you, then you get fined. Then what's the question? Does the fish on the line belong to me or not? Are we playing basketball or are we playing tennis? Is the line in or is it out? What is it? What are the rules? We don't know. And when that happens, the fish on the lines are the first ones to die because we don't know. But if they find out that the government fines you, now they stop. They're not going to do that anymore. We learn, right, when there's uncertainty, we find out, and the government has to clarify those things for us. But sometimes there's informal rules that matter. What if I gave you guys a chance to do it again, and this time I took away the lines, but I let you all talk before we did round 1? Would that change the outcome? Maybe. Maybe. We got a shot at changing it. It all depends on how much you trust the people around you, right? How well do you trust each other? And in small, close-knit communities, those sorts of informal rules work really, really well. The lobster fishermen in Maine, for example, have a lobster gang that goes around and enforces the rules on their own without any government intervention. If you are found with lobster traps in an area that doesn't belong to you, then they come on, they cut your lines, and you lose your traps. Right? And that has worked well enough for people to know, this is my spot, that's your spot, everyone's going to make money, we're all good. And they don't need the government to step in and tell them what to do. So if you can talk to each other, and you can work it out, and you can trust each other, we can get a lot done without the government. Okay? That's why morality matters. Right? Ethics and morality matters in economics as much as anything else. Right? So the rules of the game matter. Institutions are the rules that influence the game. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead here because of time. So as I wrap up, I want to encourage you to try to use some active learning activities. Try to create something for the students to experience so they can live out the concepts. Because as they do, right, they start to have something to hang their ideas onto, and they remember it more long term. If you want some ideas, go to FTE.org. We've got a ton of curriculum. We have videos of all kinds of activities. We do a trade game where kids get things in bags and they don't know what's in the bag at first. Then they have to trade with people around them, and they eventually get to trade with the whole class, and we see how voluntary trade creates wealth. That's great. We have a supply and demand game where kids run around the room, and some are buyers and some are sellers, and we see how the price is set and how no one knows what the price is in advance, but how the price is discovered in the marketplace and how that works out. So lots of good activities like that. Now, I know many of you are elementary school teachers, right? Elementary people? Yeah? Okay, so for you all, I have my email up here. If you email me, I can send you some information about some resources we have for elementary teachers. We actually have curriculum to teach economics to kindergartners. Okay? We have a thing called Play-Doh economics. where you can use Play-Doh to help introduce economics to your students. We also have a thing called the Classroom Mini Economy, where it's a good classroom management tool, but it also teaches economics. The students rent their desks, they have jobs, or they make money. Right? It's a great little activity. I can send you information about that too. So again, check out FTE, check out my email if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to help you guys out. Thank you so much. Upcoming activities, and there's a handout in your folder about that stuff. And lastly, FTE wanted me to ask you what you thought about the presentation. If you do the survey, we'll enter you in for a $50 Amazon gift card. Cool? All right, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.